Hello, and welcome to Powerful Places Podcasts. I'm your host, Gary White, and today we will hear an interview with my daughter, Stephanie Crystaal, about her recent trip to India with her husband, Geode. This interview was recorded in Girona, Catalonia, Spain, on June 10th, 2014. So I'm sitting here today talking with Stephanie Crystaal about her recent trip to India. They just arrived back here in Spain yesterday and have had a chance to get a night's sleep. While you were in India, you wrote this little message to me, and I want to start with this message. You said, "It's been a trip of big disappointments, excitements, and life-changing events." So, let's start with life-changing events. Can you tell me something about what life-changing events you experienced?
It was not like unexpected what the situations were where I got there, but dealing with the way things are culturally so much different there was profoundly different for us. My husband and I, Geode, we really had to rely on each other. I mean, if we were not a unified team, something seriously bad could have happened. And so it really brought us a lot closer in the bonding, because you were basically, trusting your life with another person, and I've always been independent, and so it was kind of different for me for that. And then there were situations on the other extreme, like we went to this temple that one of my friends took us to, and he wasn't even planning on taking us to this temple, and he was driving past and he was like, "Oh, I'm going to take him to this temple." And they were doing a Sanskrit mantra, and it was he told us, is one of the more powerful ones that are done. And we sat down to just experience it for a minute, and for him to pray for a minute. And the next thing I know, I'm having visions, and I don't know how much time has passed, and I felt him touch our shoulder, and kind of startled me out of it and brought me back to the reality of the situation. And he tells us that he's called both of our names 3 times, and that neither one of us are responding, and that he finally had to touch us to get us, and we both had gone into a full trance in this.
Wow.
And Geode had experienced lights and other stuff, and I had experienced pictures of scenes that I've never seen before, and it was just a really profound experience. And to come out of it was just, you just felt like awe-inspired, and it was just really amazing.
And this is chanting. Was it a group of people chanting?
There was probably 15 people. And both Geode and I confirmed this with each other, that there was one who really was like the leader. He was not like at the front or anything, but he was like kind of in the middle. And it looked like people just kind of like came and just did this. That wasn't like a planned set group, because people came and went. But there was one who really seemed to really grasp the
was holding the energy.
Yeah, really holding the energy of it. And others of them were just chanting along like they knew the words and stuff, but it didn't have the same pull, the same energy, the same frequency as that one guy. And you could always hear him over the others, and he was really like the leader of the group, and he always had his eyes closed. He never opened his eyes the whole time we were there. And but there was probably a good 15-20 people. And like I said, they'd come and they'd go as they wanted.
Just voices or instruments as well?
Just voices.
Just voices.
Just voices.
Yeah, interesting.
And it was deep, rhythmic, Very, I mean, you could hear it outside the temple. It was loud. And other times when we were in the train and stuff, or in the rickshaws and stuff, you could hear, as we passed cities, you could hear the temples, you could hear people chanting. So they really chanted out very, very loud and very rhythmic, because you could feel the rhythm of it.
So this chanting put you into an altered state.
Yes.
How did it feel afterwards? Did it continue, or did you come back?
Euphoric. I mean, it was like because after we went from there, we went over and it was the Shiva temple. So there was where the Shiva rides the huge cow, and so there was a big statue of the cow, and so we went over and saw the statue of the cow, and then we went over to there was like a little shrine area. And you went over there and you ring the bell, and that tells Shiva that you're there and that you're asking for prayers. And then you put your forehead to the altar area and you make a wish. And if you do this, then Shiva's supposed to grant your wish. So we went there and we went over. There was like a door that was Shiva's door, and there was a bell there, and we rang that. So we were still within the temple, but we did quite a few things after this experience. And the whole time it was just like I wasn't even touching the ground. I mean, it was just like I was walking, I was seeing what I was seeing, I was taking pictures, I was listening to my friend tell me what everything meant, but it was surreal. You know, it wasn't like I was there, it was like I was somewhere watching the whole situation take place.
Yeah, kind of almost out of body experience.
Yeah, just, I mean, not like I was really looking down on my own body, but really feeling like my entire being was up here, not here where it really was. It was.
Yeah. Do you think that any of this will follow you back to the West?
I don't think I'll be the same, no. I mean, I don't remember all of the pictures I saw, but, you know, it was definitely stuff that changed how I think about things. And so I don't think I'm the same person.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. The other part of your message was great excitement. What about excitements? Well,
you know, what I went there for was to meet these people that I've been talking on Facebook with for a long time, and a very special person to me. I call him my twin, and the reason I do that is because I've been a healer my whole life, and I've done millions of healings on millions of people. And when I first did a healing on him, I felt it inside of me. It was like I was healing my own soul, not his body. And it really kind of freaked me out at first, because it was just like, okay, I'm doing something wrong, you know? And the more that we started talking and sharing, the more we found this really, really deep soul connection, like really fast. I mean, we hadn't known each other for very long before this started happening. And it really feels like our souls are so intertwined that they're like two pieces of a whole. So this person is extremely important to me, and I got to meet him, and you know, in physical for the first time, and so that was just extremely exciting, extremely emotional. I mean, it was just like brought me to tears, and it's like I don't want to be crying, but it was just, you know, so like a dream come true that I, you know, been wanting to do since I met him.
I'm fascinated by all this. This is the first generation. This is the first time when people get to know each other and have never seen each other in person.
Right.
You meet on Facebook.
Right.
You form friendships on Facebook. As a matter of fact, you told me you largely were in India to meet various friends, but you had never seen any of them in the flesh, as it were.
Right.
That's fascinating.
Some of the ones I never even Skyped with. Some of the ones that I met in person, I had literally only seen still shots of.
Amazing.
So I only conversed with them. And like my friend in Jaipur, I had never even really done personal messaging with. because he doesn't really get into personal messaging. He likes to have the dialogue be public. So we had only really talked in newsfeed. So it was like post a comment or post a philosophical statement, everybody debated or put in their points. And that's the only thing we knew of each other. And yet I got to go meet him and see his life and, so.
That's amazing. It's a completely different worldwide community in a way, because it's not just you and that other person, but other people are coming into these conversations.
Right.
And they may be anywhere in the world.
Right, yeah, they are everywhere in the world. I mean, they're just everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
I've talked to people in Africa, Australia, all of Europe, America, India, Saudi Arabia. I talk to people literally all over the world. Pakistan, I have friends in Pakistan. So, yeah, and my friend Ninja Pur, he has friends all over the world too, and he's telling them, my friend from America is coming, my friend, Stephanie's coming, and people, are, oh, I wish we could meet her, and
right.
and
this has to change the entire world community.
I would think so.
In ways that we can't even imagine.
I would think so, because you think back to like in America where the Red Scare, where everybody was so afraid that the Russians were gonna and they so made the Russian people sound like just truly awful people. But if you would have had the connection directly with a Russian, then you would have realized that they're just people. I haven't had any contact with people like in Iran and Iraq because their country closes down and doesn't allow the communication.
Yeah.
But, I've had communication with people, and especially when I first started communicating with people in India, the very first person I started having a conversation with was like, it's like, well, don't you feel this way about Indians? I talk to Muslims, and with the 9/11 situation, they're like, are you mad at Muslims? And it's like, no, I don't hate Muslims. Why would I hate Muslims? Well, your government says that the Muslims, blew up the towers, and that all Americans hate Muslims. It's like, I don't hate Muslims.
This has to have a profound effect, and my hope is that one of the effects is to bring the world together as people.
Yeah. Because people talking to other people do not have nearly the same problems that governments and countries have talking to other governments and other countries.
Exactly.
And then I hear that all the time too. It's like Pakistan and India are like mortal enemies.
Yeah.
And the people that I talk to in Pakistan don't hate the Indians, and the Indians don't hate the Pakistans. And they both know that it's their governments. But yet, there's this huge animosity. Like, there was like, when I got my Indian visa, it was like, you can't go anywhere near Pakistan. And, I mean, it was just like, oh.
Yeah. Well, I can imagine that you have had an exciting time. I can't imagine the details of it. You mentioned great disappointments. I asked you, tell me about disappointments.
There were some times when the plans didn't go as they were supposed to go for various reasons. Some completely legit, some questionably legit as to why they didn't go. And so I didn't get to meet all the people that I wanted to meet.
So it's a matter of not being able to meet people.
Yeah, I didn't get to meet all the people I wanted to meet. I didn't get to see some of the things that I wanted to see. And then some of the people that I met didn't turn out the way I thought they were going to be.
I can well imagine that.
So, it goes back to all you really know about these people is what they tell you
on the internet.
And then you turn around and meet them, and they're not quite what they portray themselves to be. And so it was kind of eye-opening and, pretty emotional there for a while. It was just like, I really been looking forward to meeting these people, and then for them to be not what I expected. And it was kind of like, whoa, okay, here I am basically putting my life in these people's hands, and they're not as nice of people as I thought they were.
As you hoped they were.
Right.
Yes. So you traveled in India not as a Western tourist would. That is, you didn't do
Right.
the package tour with a guide and
No.
staying in Western style 4-star hotels,
No,
etc.
we
etc.
did basically none of that.
Any recommendations for other people who want to experience what you've experienced?
The trains was a big portion of it. All the tour books that I read recommended to take the sleeper trains if you were going on a long distance and that you wanted to meet the people. And I took 3 sleeper trains. One I had no issues with whatsoever. It was a decent experience. The people that were there, only one of which really interacted with us, because most of them don't speak English. In fact, most of them don't even speak the universal language of Hindi. Most of them only speak their local dialect, which makes it extremely difficult if you're traveling from more than one area. So I didn't have a lot of interaction, but the people were generally decent. What the problem was when I tried to book a train fairly last minute, within like a couple weeks before we left, and I got put on a waiting list, which is okay because you generally get to board the train anyway. Well, the waiting list, there's three ways. You either get a seat and it's assigned and confirmed, or you get RAC, which is reserved against cancellation, or you get waitlisted. And 90% of the waitlisting people get up to reserved against cancellation. The problem with reserved against cancellation is that means that you're going to be sharing a seat with somebody. So this place where you're normally able to stretch out, you're now having to split with somebody, probably a complete stranger. Which, okay, it's all right. It's not the best, but it's all right. You'll make do, right? The problem is there's absolutely no organization whatsoever. And everybody knows it. So basically, the conductor checked tickets one time, and if you boarded any time after 9 p.m., they didn't even bother to check. So there's tons of people boarding this train at midnight that I'm guaranteed don't have tickets. Mm-hmm. And they're just going around trying to scare somebody out of their seat to get to have a place to sleep. And so it was, for the long overnight train rides, I definitely don't recommend.
You don't recommend
the sleeper.
I guess the other part would be, do you recommend women to travel by themselves? I
wouldn't, no. I was with my husband the whole time, or with my friends and my husband, and I felt safe. But there's no way I would have ever felt even remotely safe by myself. I mean, there would be times where we would be walking on the streets and I would get 4 or 5 steps ahead, and I noticed that the way people looked at me was different than when he was walking side beside with me or right behind me. Because even if he was 3 steps behind me, we were both white in a very non-white community, so it was very obvious we were together. But if he got far enough behind where they couldn't see him, then I was a white woman alone, and that was a completely different energy. You could feel the way that people looked at you was completely different, and I did not feel safe at all. And I'd be I'm gonna stop, I'm gonna go back to where I'm a little closer to him so they know we're together, and then everything changed. The Indian people are very, the males especially, the women some, but the males especially are very aggressive people. They really just come at you and try to scare you. I mean, it's just a real like a vicious dog barking at you. It's But if you stand your ground, then they turn tail and run. They're a very, very timid people. They very little violence, very, very little. In fact, India has never attacked another country. They're non-violent people, but they are very upfront and come at you and try to startle you and scare you, because chances are they get what they want that way.
Sure.
So,
yeah, and there's a lot of them. So they don't really gang. I mean, it's not like you would have 4 or 5 men come at you at one time. Right.
I mean, never did I see large groups. It was always just 1 or 2 people. But it would be you wouldn't have anybody to defend you either.
Right.
I mean, even the police didn't seem like they would have ever been any help to us. I mean, we would get lost and we'd walk into the police station figuring, where else are you going to get information? Walk into the police station. The police station doesn't even The police station 2 blocks from the train station doesn't know the word train in English. I mean, that seems like that would be like the most important word you could possibly know 2 blocks from the train station as a police officer. And they couldn't even give me directions to the train station, you know. So.
Interesting adventures. Well, we could talk philosophy about all of this, but that's another interview. Thank you, Steph, for sharing some of your experiences with us here.
Yes, no problem.
Go to www.powerfulplaces.info to look for other podcasts in this series.